Alright, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Marvel Buddies. It's just me again, but I figured that this week, with everything going on, we talk about one of the a pretty interesting character in Jessica Walters, and how she's different from her cousin Bruce Banner. So of course, with this week we'll be talking about She-Hulk, um, being that she's getting her own Disney Plus show, and there's a big commotion going on with her. Um, so she debuted February of 1980 in Savage She-Hulk #1. It's this exact comic here. Um, and she was written by Stan Lee and Steve Buscema before they left and kind of handed it off to Anthony Kraft and Frank Springer, who also wrote the character of Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew. Um, and they've written a lot of like female characters, especially Frank Singer. He's a female pencilist or drawer, specifically like Dazzler and a couple other characters, um, and um, so he's done kind of like this like erotic style of like Marvel characters, um, and or at least I know someone at Marvel at one point did with She-Hulk and Spider-Woman. Um, Especially at a time when Marvel had a lower budget. Um, yeah, and so She-Hulk also like the reason behind her creation and also namely Spider-Woman. There's like rumors that they wanted it because there was a lot of deception with Marvel and DC. How a lot of those characters are big rip-offs of each other. You have like Thanos and Darkseid, Catwoman and Black Cat, Green Arrow and Hawkeye, Aquaman and Namor. You know, and so for Marvel, in order to prevent losing a character like they almost did with Captain Marvel, they decided to patent She-Hulk and Spider-Woman. I don't know how legit this story is. Um, I've I've heard that was one of the major reasons. However, Marvel also claimed that She-Hulk created it due to the success of the Hulk TV show in the 1980s with Lou Ferrigno as the original Hulk, and that they wanted to capitalize off of it. Whatever the case may be, She-Hulk was written in 1980, and this is her debut comic. Off the rip, she is an attorney, so she's been in the law game for a while. And just a pre heads up, there's not much action in this episode, not much like Marvel action because it she is a big shot lawyer. She's defended the likes of Star Fox, if you guys remember him from the post credit scene of the Eternals, as well as Captain America, Daredevil, couple other characters she's gone toe to toe with in the courtroom as well as defended. Um, the really big one was that Star Fox one. There's a whole story written around it. Um, that's a good question. She's an attorney. I think that's the correct word. She's not. She's like a defender pretty much. She has her own like law firm and she's a type of defender, I guess. She like if someone has some sort of like issue or if there's a case brought onto someone, they She-Hulk will come in and try to defend them from said case. I'm not my lawyer terms are not the best, but she is a defender or I guess or like a not a public defender, but like she's an attorney that goes in and defends said client of any like big cases, and she's routinely seen around a couple of like main named characters like Jessica Jones, for instance. She's a big character that kind of like helps her out. They're buddies. Her best friend is Patsy Walker, who, if you guys have seen the Jessica Jones TV show, she's in it. She's the radio host. And yeah, there's a lot of big name characters that she's worked for. She's a backup for the Fantastic Four. When the Fantastic Four are out in another dimension, She-Hulk is the Thing's backup. Yeah. If they need a replacement Fantastic Four team, it's the team is She-Hulk replacing The Thing. I know Medusa, the girl who can control her hair from the Inhumans. Um, she is the replacement for Sue Storm. Ant-Man is the replacement for Mr. Fantastic, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's either Spider-Man or Iceman that replaces the Human Torch. Oh no, he had yeah, he had his girlfriend. That's right. He had like this normal girl that just did nothing, but they put her in like a thing suit. It's pretty funny. Let's see here. I think I can look it up. FF re replacement. Uh, hold on. Fantastic for replacement team. It was like I know it was like Medusa. Let's see. They had like a replacement team. It was really funny. And Medusa. Oh no, that's Crystal. Here, here's She-Hulk as a FF member. Hold on, let me get over. Here's She-Hulk as an FF like member. She's usually seen replacing Johnny. Um, yeah, it's cool. Um, whatever. L my paper's out. Okay. I know there's I'm telling you, it's funny. Johnny has his girlfriend in a suit. Um, and it's really funny when on screen right. Ah, yeah, Medusa, Ant-Man, She-Hulk, Spider-Man, Crystal. But there's a hold on. Hopefully this is like no, definitely not that. There's a thing where the Human Torch is his girlfriend is in like a thing outfit. I can't remember for the life of me, but yep, you gotta believe me. It's funny. Like the head is off and it's just her like tiny head and like a big like rock body. It's funny. But yeah, the comic starts here with you have Bruce Banner walking in trying to see his cousin. He comes in and he's like, she's like, oh, I know that voice anywhere. She turns around. He's like, Doc, it's you after all these years. He's like, oh, you're the only one that ever called me that. He's like, I haven't heard from you since you quit medical school to be a nuclear physicist. And he's like, how about you becoming a big time criminal lawyer? He's like, never mind me. I want to know, all. And he's like, oh, she immediately recognizes something's wrong with him. And he wants to tell her that he's the Hulk, right? He's like, I want to, tell you. And he does. He comes out and he's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm a wanted man. And she's like, oh, what did you do? What did you do? It's not something I've done, but something I've become. And they kind of give you a little backstory on the Hulk here. So he talks about how a few years ago he developed after he left med school, he started working on the gamma bomb, right? And um, this guy who is, if I'm not mistaken, is Igor. Yeah, Igor never really liked him. And so they were developing the bomb together when Bruce sees someone out on the like field on the like bomb facility, and so he takes a jeep and goes out there and he's like warning the kid, but he told Igor to stop the bomb. Of course, Igor didn't listen. He hits the button and blows him up, and he saves the kid, but the gamma blast manages to hit him and turns him into the Hulk. And so Jennifer, she's like, whoa, is that you really mean it? You're the Hulk? And he's like, yeah, a chemical change, I can't control it, and it comes when I'm, mad or something like that. And she's like, look, I'm sorry, I've got no right to lay this on you. And she's like, no, don't say that. I want you to come with me. There has to be an answer. And the two head out and they're going back to you know, Jennifer's house. She's like, I've got to warn you, there might be danger. And it's like, danger, cousin. The lady's a criminal lawyer. I live with danger. It's like it's not the same. And while she's talking about danger, there are a couple dudes kind of like watching her, and he's like, it's her. Get ready. Hey, she's with someone. And they're kind of tailing her, right? She's driving, and they're behind her. He's like, so far I've done all the talking. What about you? how are you doing? And she's like, I'm busy right now. And then they talk, they give her a little backstory how she's defending Moncton, who is, if I'm not mistaken, he was like an ex-Shield agent, but he's accused of murdering Nick Trask's bodyguard, uh, who is this guy, Nicholas Trask. Um, if I'm not mistaken, this is the guy that he's like, you know what? Marvel database exists for a reason. He is, if I'm, I Trask, yeah, the Silver Serpent. He's like a big snake dude. Here's him with the snake, I guess. I don't I don't really know. There's some cool pictures though. Not gonna lie, with Spider-Man and Spider-Woman, and Hulk and She-Hulk, pretty cool. It's not this version of Trask who develops the what's it called, the Sentinels. Pew pew. Yeah, it's not him. No relation. Um, but anyway, she gets back to her apartment and she's talking about how Montauk's being framed. Um, and how Trask hates him, but he set the whole thing up to to frame him. And he's like, what will you do? How do you intend to defend your client? He's like, I got a plan. I planted a rumor that I found secret evidence proving Trask's himself murdered the bodyguard, and it might shake him up. But if Trask really is a killer, he may try to silence you permanently. She's like, oh no, those things only happen in the movies. And literally the second she steps out of the car, she gets shot. And you know, Bruce is like, no, Jen. This guy goes to finish her off, and Bruce grabs like a hose and tries to like hose him down. Like how cops kind of do it when there's like a riot going on. And so he hoses them down and takes her and heads off. And they drive off. He's like, too many shots. We got to split before the cops come. He's like, I gotta, Bruce is like, I gotta stay calm. I can't, turn into the Hulk now, or I won't be able to save her. And so they drive off, and he's talking about how he needs to she's losing blood, so he needs to give her a blood transfusion. So he picks her up, kind of breaks into this guy's house, who he finds out to be is a medical doctor, and brings her in, lays her down, and starts to work. And then he begins to give her that blood transfusion with him. Later on, she wakes up, and he calls the police, letting them know what happened. They take Jen, and they start to question him. They're like, we want you for questioning because you're the number one suspect. We gotta let the district attorney get to you. And he's like, whoa, 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 the DA. If they figure out who I am, they'll come and arrest me. I'm the Hulk. I'm a criminal. So I gotta leave. And so he, hulks out, smashes through the door, and leaves. And then the next day he reads up on it on the newspaper. And he's like, I gotta go now. I hope Jen takes care of herself. Meanwhile, while she's back in the office, she starts to feel like weird. Her skin, her bones, they seem tingly, and she thinks it's the medicine. And then she's like, um, she's not expecting when three doctors come into her room, and they're like, we got your medicine for you, and he's like, I don't know you. Where's my doctors? And why did three of you have to come in and give me medicine? And they're like, you asked too many questions, lady, and you're not gonna like the answer. And they try to chloroform her down pretty much. But as she gets chloroformed down, she starts getting upset and angry, and the rage that flows through her veins, like hot seething lava, as Stan Lee puts it, later, a couple seconds later, transforms her into the She-Hulk. And there she is, and she chucks her bed at one of the guys who pulls out a gun, and they head off running. And she's like, there's no way I'm gonna let you leave. So she rips the what is it, the elevator shaft doors. She rips them open, takes the cord, and then pulls them back up so that they can't escape. And she rips the door open from the elevator, and they immediately hit the like door open button, and they start running. Like, we gotta get out of here before she gets to us. And she's like, I'll get them. I'll get them if it's the last thing I do, kind of thing. And so she starts hulking out. She's like, everyone get out the way. No one stops the She-Hulk. And she starts going kind of a little power hungry. Like, I've never felt like this before. They get into a car and start driving off, and she's like, you're not getting away from me. She picks up this like stop sign, I guess, or like a lamppost. it's a lamppost, and she chucks it at him, and it breaks the like bottom of the tires off, like they all come falling off, and she gets to them, pulls them out, and you guys gotta talk, and he's like, please don't hurt me. It was Trask. He paid us to kill the Walters girl. He was afraid she'd prove he'd frame Moncton for the murders that Trask himself committed, and she leaves him down there for the cops to take, and he's like, whoa, 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 you have to come back, and he's like, you want me, you have to catch me, and he's like, wait, Joe, I need you here. There's no law against green skin, and he heads off. She's like, my anger's fading, my strength, I must get back, and she gets up, she goes up the fire escape into and while she's doing it, she changes back into um Jennifer Walters, and she lays back down in her bed, and she's talks to the nurse, or like she moves to the room next door, and the nurse is like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, I was frightened by all the yelling, and he's like, oh, you're lucky. And she's like, that savage female savage is just horrible. Don't worry, it's over now. And she's like, nope, it's just the beginning. The blood transfusion must have caused it to I become a gamma monster like the poor doctor. But I'll learn to live with it from now on. Whatever Jennifer Walters can handle, the She-Hulk will do. And that's pretty much her origin story. She has a lot of big stories. Couple where she goes around the world like defending people in court cases across the galaxy. I should say she's like a interplanetarian lawyer, I guess. Um, there's a couple. She defends a couple like major like space characters. And you know, she's her big thing is that she is an attorney. If you guys remember when I covered Cloak and Dagger, you guys there was that Runaways comic where they bump into She-Hulk or they meet She-Hulk. Like she's you know famous New Yorker, famous lawyer. And she becomes a big top lawyer. But around 2014, Charles Soule and Javier Pulido end up rewriting her story, and she ends up leaving the law firm she's at to make her own. But it doesn't really catch too much like traction. It's her, Patsy, and this other lady with their capuchin monkey. They have a monkey, and they start defending, like trying to defend people. Um, and one of the big cases that they get is actually defending Captain America. And by this point in time, it's in the 2014 comic run. Captain America's super soldier serum has caught up with him, so he's no longer like a 100-year-old guy in a 25-year-old's body. He's like 90. He still has the super soldier serum, but he's old, and they're trying to frame him for, or like, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, English not good right now, but like basically they're trying to discredit him as Captain America for stuff he did when he was Steve Rogers before becoming Captain America back in the 1940s. Um, and so She-Hulk has to defend him from whatever the case may be, and she takes on a couple cases against some big top lawyers here. So this is the cover, She-Hulk, and here's old man Steve Rogers. And she was an attorney, right? A good job when you find yourself gunned down by criminals. A gamma-irradiated blood transfusion by her cousin, Dr. Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk. They didn't just give her a second chance at life. It gave her super strength, bulletproof green skin. Wherever justice is threatened, you'll find the sensational She-Hulk. Jen's solo law practice has been really taken off lately. She's interrogated Iron Man, arranged AIM, and dismissed Doctor Doom. But at the end of a harrowing case with Hank Pym, her biggest client yet walked in, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. So yeah, like I mentioned, she's a big top lawyer. She has a lot of court cases. She's had one with uh uh, uh she's had one with Star Fox. Here's them, the two of them together, where she like defends Eros. Pretty much a lot of like female characters come out saying that because he has like Star Fox has like the stupidest power in the universe, bro. Like his power is like he can fly, and like he emits pheromones that like attract women to him sexually. And so a lot of women come out saying like, oh, he used his pheromone powers to coerce me into doing it with him. Anyway, she has to like defend him in court. Speaking of, here's She-Hulk and Iron Man in bed. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, this guy. But that's not the one we're talking about today. But that's a pretty big one that she's done because she's like she goes all around and Star Fox being Thanos' like brother or adoptive brother or whatever. Um, Pretty interesting case with him. She has one if I'm not mistaken where she defends like Earth from a celestial or something like that. I don't quite remember that one. But her powers are actually really interesting when it comes to difference between her and the Hulk. When the Hulk gets angrier, he gets stronger, but it's not always the case for She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is usually viewed as a weaker version of the Hulk. But really, as Jennifer Walters, uh, maybe, I know, or at least I think I know. She has like a superhuman law division in in the TV show where she defends what's his name, Abomination, if I'm not mistaken. But to my knowledge, she usually goes against villains. But she is a defender. She's like a defender. So if she has a client that wants to like be defended, I'm sure she has taken on a couple like defended a couple villains or whatnot. Specifically like minor characters. I'm assuming like not. Yeah, I mean you'll never see the Green Goblin on a stand and his maniacal ass going like, oh yeah, I have She-Hulk as my lawyer and expecting to win that like, oh, we've clearly known that you pumpkin bombed the orphanage or whatever, like, you know like she's definitely not gonna defend someone like him. um Cases could be made of like who she's defended. um she's gone against Doctor Doom, and I'm pretty sure she did it in Latveria, where he is the ruler of Latveria and makes the laws in Latveria. But I cannot for sure definitively state that she has defended a villain. If you consider Eros a villain, um, which I doubt because he's an Avenger, um, maybe, but yeah, she's it'd be interesting to see if she did. I'm sure she has. You can Google it. Has She-Hulk defended a villain in court? I spelled villain wrong. You know what? Because this is cutting into the spoiling my comic. Let's not. All right, let's just get into this this She-Hulk comic. But yeah, so we start out at Sisters of Mercy's hospice in California, where Steve is being treated, and they're kind of talking about how um pretty much the doctors are talking about how he was fine the night before, but how he's looking kind of weird, and how um pretty much it had something to do with Captain America here. But you go back to Brooklyn, and She Hulks with Cap, um, and they're walking into like her new office, if I'm not mistaken, and they're like, oh, it's not bad, Patsy, and he picks up his like doll, and there's a capuchin monkey that I mentioned and the other person. This is Patsy Walker, by the way. If you guys don't know who she is, she's not a very big Marvel character, but she's very interesting. It's Hellcat. Um, Patsy was originally a character in like Archie comics with Betty and Veronica, and then Marvel, like I'm pretty sure they bought the rights to her when they had like the Archie characters cross over for a like the Fantastic Four wedding with um Sue Storm and Reed Richards back in like the 60s. So they bought the rights to her. They rarely used her, but then they turned her into Hellcat, and she became kind of like a best friend figure to Jessica Jones and She-Hulk. Um, but they're talking, and he's like, she offers him a coffee, and he's like, I'll have some water. And he's like, were you really not gonna ask why I'm suddenly 90 years old? And she's like, come on, Cap, I figured I'd let you bring it up. You're one of my oldest and closest friends. And I mean, a friend that I've known longer than others. And he's like, yeah, I guess you can look at it both ways. Can we just talk the two of us? And they get into a room, and he's like, and he explains to her his situation. He's like, so that's what's happening. As you can see, I need a lawyer. I'm hoping that will be you. It's like, I'm happy to pay whatever fee you need. I'm actually pretty well off. I get a piece of all those little dolls and things like Patsy had, and it's not Stark money, but it does add up. Anyway, just tell me how much, and he's like, Cap, it's free. He's like, but it doesn't sound serious. There's some logistics to handle on my end before I can really dig in. Though I'll need to start right away. And she calls in Angie to come in. He's like, we're taking Steve's case, and it's civil suit, wrongful death, probably in Los Angeles. Um, I need you to get a copy of everything that's been filed, complaint, all of it, filed complaint, all of it. No problem. Who's the defendant? And he's like, no way. Captain America is being sued for wrongful death. Captain America. She goes crazy because it's Captain America, and so I feel the same way, Miss Huang. Fortunately, I found myself one hell of a lawyer. And they start talking about how we might go to trial. Let me know if you think we'd have to bring in some temp staff once you get a look at the papers. She's like, do you think we'll have to go? She's like, actually, no. I think I can put together a motion for dismissal based on the idea that Cap died a few years back. It happened on live TV. Everyone saw it, and Cap immediately when she starts talking about how he died a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure this was back during like the Civil War comics, and he's like, um, the death in this suit happened back in 1940, way before that. You can't be found liable post mortem. So I think, and Captain America's like, no, and she's like, no, and he's like, listen, Steve, listen, I love you, but I'm the one with the law degree. This could be really bad for you. I know you aren't guilty, obviously, but there's a PR side to this that you should think about too. You're Captain America. Your best bet is for it all to just go away quietly, and I'm sure I can make that happen. And he's like, I'll say it again. No, I don't want to win on a technicality. She's like, see if you can find some cheap flights to LA because she pretty much had the win, but Steve was making it difficult on her. And she's like, we have to toast to the case that'll put us on the map. Um, because she just started the new law firm, and she thinks that with helping Steve Rogers at in court, they might be able to um get their company kind of up and running. And she says like, are you trying to tell me you think Captain America did it? It's like, well, no, of course not, but you haven't been working in the legal field as long as Miss Walters or I have. Trials can be funny things. They take unexpected twists and turns, and juries don't get me started on juries. The last thing I'm worried about is putting Steve in front of a jury. You two almost proposed to him the minute he walked into the office. 90 or not, dude still got it. Drink up, Angie. You can't sip out on a toast. It's bad luck. Blah blah blah. They're just kind of like chit chatting. She's like, well, this is the real deal. This is the real deal. Well done. It's like, what do you mean? Is like, it's just smart. It anticipates a lot of assignments. The statute of limitation, wrongful death in California, it takes 2 years. So I thought that was an obvious path to take. The plaintiff wanted to sue until now, which was like 70 years too late. Um, but the complaint asked for equitable tolling of the statute because the family of the guy who died didn't learn about the potential claim until a few weeks ago, and that argument, all interwoven with California law about deathbed confessions. It's elegant, and so pretty much they're just talking about the court case and how the guy didn't know that he could sue until a couple weeks ago due to the wrongful death that happened in the 40s. Um, So she she decides she's gonna make a call um to Matt Murdock, who is currently in California, working at the law offices of McDuffie and Murdoch. It is no longer Nelson and Murdoch, R.I.P. the homie. Um, I'm not sure if he's dead here or not. I'm just saying that he lost the client or the buddy, whatever. And so he picks up. He's like, Jess, what's up? He's like, hey, Maddie, got a few minutes for me? And she's like, I'm just prepping for a big trial. She's like, you and me both, tough one. She's like, God, yes, I wish I'd never taken it. He's like, I wouldn't take up much of your time then. My thing is in California, but I'm not admitted out there. Would you mind me using your practice as the firm of record so I can argue as an outside attorney for you guys? And he's like, it should be fine. I'll just um run it in conflicts and then we're good. Who's the parties? He's like, well, my guy Steve Rogers, Cap, and she's like, are you jealous? And did you know he's turned old, like as old as he'd be if he'd never been frozen. Anyway, he's the same, just a little craggy. And Matt goes silent. She's like, are you still there? And Matt tells her, he's like, I can't help you. I'm sorry, but good luck. It sounds like a tough one. And he hangs up on her. And she's like, wait, what are you doing? And he's like, guess I'll ask someone else then. And she ends up taking a Stark jet over to meet up with a different employer or different like law firm in California that she can like base herself in. And they're just chit chatting about how the court case is gonna go and how pretty much he doesn't want to win on the technicality. And when they land, they end up talking to or they end up when they land, they end up in front of like a big crowd because you know everyone's like, oh, Tony Stark's jet just landed. We want to see She-Hulk. We want to see Captain America, Captain America, Captain America. So she gets off and he's like, Cap over here, Captain Rogers, did you kill the guy? He's like, why'd you fly in Tony Stark's plane? Is he involved? How about a few words for the Bugle, Cap? And She-Hulk goes like gets upset. She's like, all right, we got to get through, and she kind of starts hulking out. You guys know I'm a Hulk, right? And you know what happens when you make a Hulk angry? They lose control and then they get smashed. I'm not. It's not the Hulk's fault. It's just how it is. And you guys are making me mad. And they all run off. And she turns around and kind of smiles. Um, and here's their kind of limo for Shulky. Her nickname given to her by the Thing. And you know, they get in the jet and they're kind of like looking around, and Steve's kind of like reminiscing, I guess, all the stuff that he used to do, and Angie's kind of like, I hate to bring this up, Miss Walters, but Matt Murdock turned you down, and you still aren't allowed to work in California courtroom. The trial's in 2 days. Have you? And she's like, well, of course, that's where we're going now. Matt would have been great, but think I've got another California lawyer who might be up to the help. He's like, you think? He's like, I know Angie, I'm stressing out, but I think this will be fine. He's like, who is it? Have you met him? And he's like, no. And then they end up meeting this guy. He's like, hey there, and he's like, I'm a big fan of your work. He's like, great, great. I'm gonna get a few of those. And so you guys great. You guys look great, really great. He's like, hey, so what do I call you, Jamie? Or he's like, oh God, I didn't read this. And he's like, oh no, not Jamie. That's Madrox's name, the Big J. I'm not one of him. I'm one of his dupes. You guys can call me Matt. You can call me Matt Rocks, cause I do. This is Jamie Madrox. If you guys don't know who this is, I would love, love, love to do an episode on Jamie. He is the multiple man. Jamie Madrox. This is him, right? If you guys can, if you guys see the resemblance here between him and him, it is not the same. But he's an X-Man, and Jamie is great. Jamie, so pretty much with him, he's a mutant, and when he claps, or technically it's when he feels any kind of pain, he just claps a little harder so that he feels like a sting. He splits off into two people, and whatever the clone remembers, so does Jamie. And he typically does this so that he has a clone go out and do some mundane task so that he can focus on something else. For example, if Jamie wants to learn a new language, he can make a clone of himself, have that clone learn the language while he's chilling watching video games or playing video games or watching a movie or whatever. And then the clone will come back and he learns the language instantly because the clone learned it, right? Um, so Jamie has a I guess he is a lawyer. But yeah, and Jamie, Um, Jamie's a bit of a nutcase, because a lot of his clones are weird, and he's had a lot of like weird relationships with like he's weird. But commonly, at least when he was originally written, he worked on Muir Island. I'm not sure if he's at this moment in time still on Muir Island. If you guys are X-Men fans, you'll know Muir Island is where Moira McTaggart works. If you guys saw the X-Men trilogy, the second one with McAvoy, Moira is the FBI agent um from Dark Phoenix. Moira McTaggart. This was her. Um, this is kind of what she looks like in current Marvel comics. Um, she's technically now a mutant, but I guess at this point she wasn't a mutant and she was doing mutant research. Um, Now she is because they rewrote her. I think. But anyway, there's Jamie and there's like cloned clones, I guess. And they're there to like help her out. They're not really the smartest, and they serve just comedic purposes. So I've kind of cut out a couple of their lines. Oh, I'm sure he has. I'm sure Jamie. I'm sure Jamie has used clones to help him win cases. Um, Jamie. Jamie's not really a big lawyer, so he's not really known for his lawyer stuff. But I'm sure in the background he's used his clones for that. Jamie's Jamie's more of like he's more of like a lab assistant kind of thing. Like Moira, he works with Moira, so when they're together, Moira will be like, "Oh, hand me the vial of whatever," and he'll make a clone, and the clone will go get it and bring it to him. Kind of. That's like the way I've read Jamie because I read a lot of those old X-Men comics. Um, but he worked on. I'm pretty sure he was on X-Force. I'm not sure if he was on the X-Force team before they became like the modern X-Force team. There was an old school X-Force team that used to go on suicide missions, and somehow they all used to find a way to die in like the stupidest ways, and it'd all be on live TV, and they'd have the strongest mutant ever filming, which was a guy named Dupe, which I know is completely off of Marvel, but this is Dupe, or She-Hulk, I guess. But this is Dupe, and Dupe is a he looks like a booger, bro. But he he can stop time, and he was the cameraman for the X Force team. I can't remember if he was on that X Force team or if he was in the later X Force team. But he would send his clones out on like those suicide missions, and they would die, and like a lot of them would just die in stupid ways. I know Shatterstar, if you guys remember him from Deadpool 2, the guy that was like, "Oh, I'm better than you and everything." He gets blown out of a helicopter with an RPG, like a first one to go. Um, they just die in like the stupidest ways, and it's funny because knowing that Dupe can stop time, and not just for himself but for like everyone else, and he just doesn't because he's holding the camera and he can't, is like peak comedy there, bro. Like, just, um, but I'm sure Jamie has definitely used his clones to work court cases. Um, but anyway, Jamie's just letting them use the law firm as a way to establish herself in California and not necessarily representing Steve. So he leaves and they start working. They work all night, and so they kind of all night and into the morning, and Jennifer tries to get her sleep. Damn, bro. Clickbait, clickbait, clickbait. Anyway, um, you'll get a better one later. But she gets ready for the court, and she goes in, and what do you know? When she walks in, she's it's like, whatever happens in there, Jennifer, I know you'll do your best. I'm depending on you, and I know you can do it. She's like, thanks, Steve, but I'm not nervous at all. I slept well last night. Whatever they throw at us, I'll be ready. And who do you know is the plaintiff, or the one, I guess, if you guys consider Jennifer the defendant. The plaintiff is the person attacking the court case. who is it but none other than Matt Murdock going up against the She-Hulk in a court case. Mwah. Defending none other than Captain America. Beautiful. The two big lawyers going head to head. Like you couldn't ask for anything better. And so there's Matt talking to me. He's like, "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Thanks so much for your time. Serving as jurors is inconvenient, but it's also crucial. Without you, there's no justice. My name is Matt Murdock. I'm the attorney for the plaintiff, which means I get to talk to you first before the defense has a shot. Um, I begin to begin. I'd like to tell you something known as dying declaration. If you might think of it as a death confession, although it is an oversimplification. For one, the testimony you're about to hear is not a confession; it's an accusation. Ordinarily, the rules of evidence prevent what is known as hearsay, which is when one person tells the courtroom what they heard someone say. There's too much opportunity for confusion. After all, how can we really know what someone meant when they said something if they weren't there to hear it? If we weren't there to hear it ourselves. So, basically, he's talking about the difference between dying declaration and hearsay. When it comes to a dying declaration, um, it's hearsay, but because it's the last physical thing that person said before dying, it's technically not because they people typically tend to tell the truth when they're dying. And so a dying declaration is different from hearsay, which is just I heard from someone else say that blah blah blah. Um, and so they're talking about Officer McKinley, who is this guy here, um, was put in the unique position of hearing the dying words of Harold Fulger not too long ago, who I'm pretty sure was I went too far. I'm pretty sure it was this guy. I thought it was Captain America, but it might be this guy. This might be him. Um, but I could be wrong. Um, anyway, he's like, words of Harold Folger. Mr. Folger was the grandfather of the plaintiff in this case, and his testimony was directly applicable to the matters you are about to consider. Officer McKinley, will you please repeat what Mr. Fogel told him in the hospital room as he lay dying? And Mr. Fogel's like, yes, I'll give it to you in his own words, just like he told me. It was a story about Steve Rogers, Captain America. And she's like, you all right, Steve? He's like, just fine. Let's just hear what he has to say. Um, and here's Steve with Harold and Harold's older brother. He's like, his buddy steps up, Steve, and tells me he agreed with my brother. I tell him, who the hell are you? To tell me one damn thing, you runt. He didn't get phased, just kept talking, real quiet voice, but strong and intense. Anyway, right then, someone from the meeting pokes his head out and wants to know why I'm taking so long, and sees my brother and him and asks what that is. They got hauled in, and these things got ugly fast. They didn't like outsiders. I was just telling them to be quiet, to just shut up and let me handle it. And I could have. I knew these guys, but little Steve, he took a look around and figured he knew better. He started to talk again, and I tried to get him to shut up, but he would not shut up. There were dangerous characters, people you don't cross. I couldn't. I could see the boss getting angrier and angrier, but Steve wouldn't shut his yappy little mouth. It was like he didn't care. The boss grabs my brother, says he's gonna kill him if Steve says another word. Now you or me in that situation, we know the score. We'd stop. Steve Rogers, he didn't stop. He pushed him, he antagonized him, and the boss killed my little brother dead right in front of me. Nothing I could do. I played a role, damn it, I know I did, but that kid Steve, he was part of it. I know Sam would not be alive. I know Sam would be alive today if not for him. He'd have been the doctor. He'd have been able to provide for his family. He'd have been rich. He was gonna be a surgeon. And then I started hearing later about how Captain America saving the day, and I hear the name Steve Rogers, subject to some experimental what's it, and it turned all that skinny into muscle. God help me, I kept my mouth shut. I thought what he meant was more important than what he did or didn't do to tarnish the legend. Didn't want to tarnish the legend. Kind of funny. I knew how to keep my mouth shut better than he ever did, but I can't keep quiet any longer. I'm sure maybe he's a hero. now, but he wasn't always. People should know. They need to know. So, you know, that's kind of like the story of like why he's in court. He didn't actually physically kill the guy, but they have him in court because it was a wrongful death, and that if Captain America didn't speak, he would still be alive. So that's why they have him on court, and they want him for like I guess emotional trauma and that kind of junk or whatever. And so that's where this all begins. The last words of a man who wanted to know the truth. This is a wrongful death lawsuit, which means the family of the deceased, poor young Sam, we just heard about, are suing the plaintiff, Mr. Rogers, for monetary damage based on the idea that if he hadn't acted as he did, Sam would still be alive today. As I continue to present my case, you will hear further evidence to prove that the death of Sam Folger was caused by a wrongful act, as well as neglect of Steve Rogers, and that Sam's family, his extended family, his descendants suffered monetarily in connection with his death. Pretty much the fact that Sam didn't grow up to be the doctor that he said he would, and didn't earn the money that he wanted, and because he didn't earn the money, they're entitled to the money from Captain America, even though technically at the time the kid was like 16 and you know how things go. You're like, I'm 16, I want to do this and this, and then you end up not doing it and change your freaking focus at like college or whatever. Anyway, it's like, oof, they're eating this up, Steve. What he said, the transcript, we didn't have all that detail. How much of that? It's like, it's all right, Jen. Let's just see what's next. And he's like, sir, are you the chief archivist for the Los Angeles Police? Correct. And that's this guy. It's like, that's right. I catalog the hard copy files, the stuff we haven't had time or money to computerize yet. And he's like, and the file in your hand, it's a police report filed on November 6th, 1940. He's like, can you tell me the subject of that report? And it has to do with the brawl in a warehouse down by the docks, which resulted in a homicide. Victim is identified as Sam Fogler, and who identified him, and it says it was Steve Rogers, present at the scene. There's more too. The report says Mr. Rogers was distraught. The officer who took this down said he heard him say, "This is all my fault, and I could have stopped it. This is all my fault." And then it's Jen's turn, so she goes up and says, "You work with the old records all the time. You're probably the preeminent expert on these files in California, right?" And he's like, "There are other few guys up north, but basically, yes, that's fair to say." And he says, she says, "Have you ever seen one of these falsified?" And he's like, "Well, yes, but it's rare, and usually it only happens when there's some other agenda. I mean, back then, this case, why would someone?" And she cuts him off and says, "That's it, no further questions." She sits down, and they end up bringing Professor Flanagan, who is holds tenure at the history department at Stanford University, and she teaches World War II history. I've written several books focusing on the Selective Service and Training Act of 1940, which most people just call the draft. Um, so she is their what is it? As you'll hear in like courtroom cases, the like expert witness or whatever, the one that's like knowledgeable on all the court cases. She's like, "Are you familiar with the defendant?" She's like, "Of course, Steve Rogers or Captain America is one of the most well-known figures of the entire war. Some would say he won us the war. He won it for us. I appreciate your opinion immensely, Miss Flanagan, but if you could just stick to the answering the question without elaboration, I think it would help the jury get home quicker. Was Mr. Rogers classified pursuant to the draft? Um, and he was a 4F, which means he's unfit for duty. The reason must have been serious. They took everyone back then. I see in when was this? About a week after the events described in Officer McKinley's testimonies, November 15th, 1940. That's when he applied to be a soldier and they rejected him. Um, and they said that he had like, if you guys remember, he was prone to like yellow fever and he was too skinny and he had asthma and blah blah blah. Um, and not long after that, what did Mr. Rogers do? He volunteered for a top secret experiment, U.S. Army program led by Dr. Erskine. We know it. We now know it was the Super Soldier program that turned him into Captain America. How would you characterize the risk for volunteering in such a program? Extreme. Those men died in those programs consistently, but then there was a war on men were dying everywhere. Did criminals ever volunteer? She's like, certainly it would have been a ticket for some men, a chance to be a super soldier, more attractive than prison. And She-Hulk follows up with the question. She's like, were criminals the only sort of men who volunteered in the program? She's like, well, no, of course not. All sorts of men volunteered. And she's like, what about patriots? And he's like, certainly some men wanted to serve their country no matter the cost. Like, do you see any men in this room that would fit the description? Matt tries to object on the count of speculation, and she defends it, saying that plaintiff's counsel has already established the witness and an expert in World War II, including activities and history of Captain America, and this is not speculation, it's a fact. And the judge agrees, and she's like, we all know Mr. Rogers, we all know his story. It's like, all right, that's enough for today, and they head off for the day. And here's Jamie. She's like, oh, Madrock threw you for a loop, or Murdoch threw you for a loop today, and she's like, he's so good, rocks, and they're pretty much going on the court case. Like, um, Steve is reassuring her, like, oh, you did fine, Jen. He's like, oh, don't worry, Steve, I shouldn't have said anything. It's all under control. But there is something I wanted to run by. He's like, I learned this trick from Stark's lawyers a while back. I'm pretty sure I can get Murdoch kicked off the case. I'd have suggested this earlier, but he must have filed his notice of appearance at the last possible minute to surprise me, throw me off. He's just brilliant. Anyways, he's known you for such a long time. I bet I can get this whole thing thrown out, get a minstrel declared. Angie's been digging into his history with as Daredevil. She's jotted down a few ideas. That whole Shadowland things for one. I mean, woof. Pretty much, she wants to discredit Daredevil or Matt as a lawyer, and the fact that he last second transferred from or took picked up the case like last second. So she's like, we can win this way. That way we don't have Matt on the as a lawyer there. It'll just be me defending you. And he's like, no, Jen, I told you no technicalities. I'm sorry, but I know this makes your job more difficult. But we have to make things fair. It's like, of course, fair and square. That's the American way. Um, so we got some drudgery ahead of us tonight, but why don't we head back to the hotel? And they head off, and she immediately realized, she's like, we're screwed. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's not that bad. You scored some great points with the military expert. He's like, no, look, this isn't an ordinary case, Angie. It's not about just whittling down liability for Steve, maybe getting a settlement. Murdoch's building a narrative where Steve could be partially responsible for what happened to that kid back there in 1940s, and that could be enough. This isn't a criminal trial or nothing. It's not all or nothing, guilty or not guilty. It's civil. If that jury finds any culpability for Steve, and then Captain America's tarnished forever. He's old now. He might die soon. There'll be this will be the last thing anyone ever remembers about him. So she wants to keep his like name intact and whatnot. And she's like, we have to win this fair and square. Any ideas how we might do that? And she's like, I'm working on it. Let me call Patsy. See if she's had any luck with that mission Cap gave her. And here she is in the stealth suit, the Hellcat stealth suit. This is her normal suit. Uh, this is what she typically looks like. She does not, to my knowledge, marry Iron Man. This is a really good one. This is a good like depiction of what she looks like. She's usually in those like Archie style comics. Cause she's a big Archie character. Here's her with She-Hulk, Moondragon. I'm pretty sure this is Damian Hellstrom, I think, but I could be wrong because he's usually like not wearing clothes. Um, this is her in Jessica Jones, if you've seen the show, or The Defenders. This is the character that she's played. Um, she's an interesting character. I would really, if you guys are interested, like she has a really great backstory as an Archie character turned superhero. Trish, as Hellcat. This is her in the show. Um, Here at Alias Investigation with Jessica Jones. She's great. And that's her in the stealth suit. And she's like, can't talk right now. I'll call soon later. And she's like, I'm gonna go grab a few hours of sleep. I'll see you guys in a bit. And she goes to sleep, and there's knocking on her door. So there's her. There's her toes. Look at little she feet, all green and nasty, and she got green toenails. Yuck. Anyway, she heads out, and there's Daredevil. It's like, hey Matt, if you wanted an attorney conference, you could have called. And it's like, right, but this isn't a lawyer thing. Here's how here's how you can tell, and he points to the Daredevil thing, and he does a backflip, and she starts chasing him. He is in the red outfit, by the way. Don't be fooled by this. It's just kind of like a shadow, so you can't see the whole thing. But he's in the red, and she starts chasing him, and she's like, "All right, that's enough." And she grabs his foot, and she's like, "What is this, Matt?" And he's like, "You're telling me you didn't enjoy that after a day in the courtroom? You probably needed a run as much as I did." It's like, it's not that. Why are you trying this case against Captain America? You're not even soft pedaling. You're going at me guns blazing. That's the other reason I wanted to talk to you, Jen. Jen, I'm doing this, Jen, because he asked me to, and she's like, no, he didn't. He's like, he did. The family's original lawyers got in touch with me, if I might be willing to do a little consulting based on my relationship with Cap. I told them that where they could stick their consulting, but then I wanted to see Steve. I wanted to warn him about what might be coming. He got really calm. He was thinking for a minute, and then he said three words: "Take the case." She's like, I don't understand. He's like, I'm not sure he wants us to, but he insisted that I do my very best. He said that I'd, if I'd ever if I'd ever been his friend, if I cared about what he'd done as Captain America, then I wouldn't pull any punches. If he insisted that I do every last thing that I could to win the case, and so I am. That's where it all happened, 70 years ago, give or take ancient history. Maybe here at the warehouse, maybe Cap wants the truth out. Maybe Cap wants the truth out. He won't be around for much longer. Maybe he wants to pay the piper. It's like, but he couldn't have. And here he is back in the day, I guess. But pretty much we find out that Cap told Daredevil to take the case because what you'll find out later why, but Cap asked him to take the case, and he's like, that's why I'm putting him on the stand tomorrow. If he won't leave, if you won't let either of us save him, maybe he'll save himself. It's like, so help you God, sir. And the guy's like kind of nervous. He's like, you're doing fine, son. Relax. And like, thank you. And here he is with She-Hulk about to incriminate Cap, and he's like, "Now, Mr. Rogers, I was hoping you might begin by going over the testimony provided by Mr. Folger in his hospital room, as recounted to us by Officer McKinley yesterday." And he's like, "No need, Matt. Let's not waste the folks' time." Everything he said was true, and so off the rip, he's like pretty much incriminating himself, basically saying that everything that um, Officer McKinley said about the court case is true, and how Cap got the guy killed because he was talking. Um, He's like, so to be clear, you've just verified that the testimony of Mr. Harold Folger with respect to the events of November 1940 and your involvement in the death of his brother is accurate. And he's like, that's right. And he's like, you're admitting your guilt in this matter. He's like, I didn't say that. And he walks away. He's like, no further questions. That's adorable, by the way. Look at the freaking monkey in a suit. That's cool, bro. You ever see a monkey in a suit? Because I have. You guys remember? I know you do. Look at Hit Monkey, dude. Hit Monkey? Yeah, look at a monkey in a suit, bro. This is badass. Little hit monkey. Ah, but this monkey can shoot a double barrel, can shoot a gun. Yeah. Look at hit monkey, bro. I need more hit monkey, man. This was such a good comic. Anyway, um, back to this monkey who's currently a lawyer, I guess. And so She-Hulk comes up and she's like, Captain Rogers, you made a point of correcting the plaintiff's counsel when he suggested you had admitted your guilt. He's like, yes. He's like, why would you do that if Harold Folger's story is true? Then that's it, isn't it? Not at all. It's like, why is that? He's like, because that wasn't the entire story, not even half of it. It's like, I see. Would you please tell the jury the parts that Mr. Folger left out? It's like, no one would come right and tell us where Harry was, but eventually we put enough hints together that he was headed to a certain warehouse. It was worse than we thought. It's like, oh no, we got to do something, Steve. You're right, Sam. We've got to we got to go to the cops. This is big. And he's like, we can't, Steve, not until we get him out. If he gets picked up for this, his life is over. He'll never get past it. He's like, we shouldn't. Please, Steve, he's my brother. Please. And like, all right. We waited and finally got lucky. Although I guess based on how it went, it wasn't exactly good luck. Uh, to Steve Rogers, listen, Harry, Sam's right. We'll go, but you should come with us. Like, Sam, what the hell are you doing here? Sam, to find came to find you, big brother. Everyone was worried about you. Mom cries herself to sleep a lot. Look, we can't talk about that, but you got to get out of here. It's not safe. Like, what are you doing in there? It's wrong, but it's not the end of the line either. Just walk away. You made the decision. Come here and just you came to the decision to come here. It's just as easy to leave. He's like, what do you know about it? He's like, why would you do this? He's like, it doesn't matter. Get the hell out of here, little brother. I mean it. Before it's too. And then out comes the guy. He's like, hey, Folger. And he's like, who are your friends? They pull him down. He's like, and who are these fine fellows? Found him outside talking to Folger. He's like, I see. And you end up finding out that they're working at a Nazi facility in California. And he's like, and here's Folger, the skinny one. Just I just met. The other one's my little brother. It's like, aha. So we know they came here looking for you, and so you're the reason this operation is endangered. He's like, kill all three of the, dump the bodies out at sea. Prepared to move the location. This one's compromised. He's like, no. He's like, no. There could be a way. Show us how loyal you are to the cause, Folger. Remove your brother and his weakling friend from the equation, and we'll consider it forgotten. He's like, I can't. He's like, very well, then the orders stand. Sorry about the cropping here. I could not get the full image to be big enough for you guys to see. I mean, or myself for that point, but I did my best. And he's like, um, who do you think you are? And then the guy kind of looks down at them. He's like, I'm a member of the master race. As proof, look how easily I turned the citizen of the cause of the Fuhrer to the cause of the Fuhrer. He's like, you're an idiot. So you found a few weak lost men looking for any port in the storm and convinced them to work for you. Big deal. Any cause can find a few men to support it. There are always men willing to believe whatever you want in exchange for three squares and a roof over their heads, especially these days. You're treating it all like you've won the war already. I'll tell you something, pal. You know um we'll get into the war or you wouldn't be here, and when we do, you won't be facing men like these. You'll be facing our best. And he's kind of like standing up to the guy. And he tells him like, stop talking or someone is gonna die. They go ahead, show these men how afraid of words you are. If you're this scared of words, imagine how scared you'll be when we really come after you with really come after you hateful monsters. And say, fellas, you're back in the wrong horse. These Nazi scums don't have a chance in hell. And he's like, I would kill you for that, but if I did, it would prevent you the chance of finding some blind idiot woman to breed with you and continue to inflict this country with weakling genetics. No, if I'm gonna kill someone, I should kill the strong one. And he kills the brother, pretty much saying that if he kills off the strong ones, the weak ones, like Steve, will have kids and they'll breed and the kids will be weak. Oh, what a mistake he made. This could really be a what if. Like, what if Captain America died here and didn't like fight the war? That crazy. And back to Jennifer. It's like, as terrible as yeah, it was. I'd like to follow up on that point. During the plaintiff's case, they presented police reports from that evening in 1940, and none of them mentioned anything about fifth columnists or Nazis. Can you explain that? And he's like, yep. It's like, I see. Go ahead, please. And he's like, nope. He's like, and why not, Captain Rogers? He's like, it's classified information. She's like, all right then. And then they end up swearing in this other lady, Miss Doyle. And she's like, you knew Mr. Rogers and the deceased back in Brooklyn, did you not? She's like, I did. I knew Steve and little Sammy, God rest his soul. He's like, before we recess for the evening, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like you to think about what Steve Rogers became and what he fought for. She ends up showing pictures of him as Cap. And they end up taking a recess, which is kind of like a little break where they can gather and talk. She's like, all right, Steve, this thing is almost over. I've done just about everything I can do. Can we please revisit that whole classified thing? you told me you had a reason. Um, you told me you had a reason why there's no corroboration for your story of the official documents Matt presented. That I should just trust you and everything would fall into place. Well, that's exactly what I did. And hey, question for you: what do I have here in my hand? What do I have in my hand here? And Cap. I find this funny. He's like, Cap's nothing. It's like, what a coincidence. That's also exactly what's fallen into place. Nothing. Do you want to lose this case? Because honestly, that's about the only thing that makes sense to me. And then in comes, Patsy. She's like, I got it. She's like, thank you, Patsy. I owe you one. It's like, my pleasure. I mean it. I mean it. Any chance to bust out the cell suit? And he's like, actually, this was the best reason I've had to wear it in a long time. It mostly used to see if guys were sneaking around behind my back, but it's nice to have a good memory with it for change. Is like, I asked you to break into a highly classified U.S. government with records facility. For me, that's a nice memory. It's like, yeah, relatively speaking, this stealth suit and I have been through a lot, Cap. I've seen a lot, Cap. It's like too much. It's like, it's still here. After Sam was killed, Sa Saurus sprites went after Harry, and you slipped away with Sam's body in confusion. In the confusion, finding the weakling, find the weakling. He should watch the death of this one as well. You would have died, but the FBI must have been tracking the Nazis. They busted up the meeting and you and Harry and saved you and Harry Folger. So pretty much I guess this guy was the Sour Sprite or whatever his name was, and he ended up saving Harry, and the FBI ended up saving Harry and Steve. Um, and they ended up going to Steve's like, "Hey kid, some of the goons around us told us what happened and said that this is all my fault. He's like, this is all my fault. I could have stopped it. It's like, did you put Hitler in power over there? Send this scum to America to cause trouble? This wasn't your fault. It's terrible, but it wasn't your fault. And if you said even half the things they said you did, son, we need you in uniform right away. It's like to serve in I'd serve in a heartbeat, but I'm not tough enough. They'll 4F me for sure. It's like don't worry about it about that. You want it, you go after it. And if they're too short-sighted to see the possibilities where there could be another way, my boss guy named Hoover um, knows just about everything worth knowing from Anchorage to Abilene. Where it is they're working on something new and they need heart more than muscle. And from what I heard, kid, you've got heart enough to fight 10 wars, don't give up. So pretty much what he's referring to is the super soldier serum and the experiments. And he's like, they classified the whole thing, swore me to secrecy, locked Harry away with the rest of the guys in that warehouse. No one wanted to let on that Nazis were working on U.S. soil. And when Harry got out of prison after the war, well, we won. No one who'd been involved with the fifth column was exactly rushing to talk about it. I don't believe Harry Folger was a bad man. He was just a little lost. A lot of people were back then, and no one knew what would happen with the war. Times were tough, and seeing me go on to become Captain America, while his little brother didn't even live to see the 25. Well, I was easy to blame, and Jess is like, but from what you're saying, it sounds like this is why you became Captain America. It's like part of it. Maybe it was going to enlist anyway, but I was going to enlist anyway, but maybe it did nudge me towards Project Rebirth. I wasn't just one. I wasn't just one thing. It was a lot of things. She's like, still, it's perfect. It's all the proof we need to. It confirms your version of the story. I don't understand why you just couldn't explain all this in the court, but and she's like, because it's classified. Not only that, it's stolen. How did you? I mean, Jamie coming in. How do you introduce that in the court? There's no Hellcat exception in the FRE that I'm aware of. And she's like, well, maybe there should be rocks. But he's right. There's like no way they can put You can't put stolen evidence or classified evidence in court. She's like, I don't mean to get frustrated, Steve, but um, at this point, I have absolutely decided you're just screwing with me. Sure, there are legal obstacles to using this file, but maybe I could get around them. But what? But you won't let me. But you won't let me. Why did you have Patsy get this if we can't use it? He's like, because it's not for the court. I got it for you. Just because you can't show it to the jury doesn't mean you can't use it. Go ahead, Jen, save the day. And then here's their final, like closing remarks, I guess. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'd like to thank you all for your time. Your willingness to give up weeks from your busy lives to ensure that justice is done today is commendable. There is the first of two closing statements you are about to hear. I represent the plaintiff in this case. As you know, I'm the family of the recently deceased Harold Folger. Mr. Folger was dying. He knew he was in his very last moments on earth, and in those moments, he chose to do one thing above all others. He chose to do the right thing. He told the story of a night in 1940 when young Steve Rogers played a significant role in the tragic death of his younger brother Samuel. Mr. Rogers did not kill um, Sam Folger. However, if the actions of Mr. Rogers contributed to the death of a smart man, a medical student planning on serving his country and whose income would have supported his family for generations to come, then under the law you are empowered to do the right to right that wrong and see that Sam's descendants are compensated accordingly. We know what Mr. Rogers did immediately after the death of Sam Folger. He tried to enlist in the army, a safe haven for many individuals trying to avoid questionable events in their past. And when the army would not take him, he volunteered for an incredibly dangerous experimental program. Was he's desperate to escape the consequences, possibly criminal consequences of what he did in Los Angeles in 1940? Perhaps. I put these questions to you. It's a heavy charge. I realize the great deal he's done for this country, but know this: your decisions today will not change any of that. He is still a truly extraordinary man, and will remain one no matter the verdict you render. Nevertheless, I ask you to think about the events of that night in 1940, to think about that what happened in at that warehouse. A wrongful death verdict requires only that Mr. Rogers caused the death of another or contributed to that death by virtue of his wrongful action or neglect. He did not involve the police when he could have. His words antagonized an evil man who retaliated by killing Mr. Folger. Um, could Mr. Rogers have anticipated this result in the um, could it, could Mr. Rogers have anticipated the results? Is he responsible even partially? I say yes, but that is up to you. Thank you. And then there's Jennifer's closing remarks. Um, Hello, let's start by saying something we all know. Um, he's Steve Rogers, but he's also Captain America. Steve asked me not to bring up his service record in the closing statement, and certainly um, in his closing statements, and certainly plaintiff's counsel doesn't want you to think about it. But how can we not? He's Captain America. He's personally saved all of us, all of our lives. None of us would be here today if not for that fact that he saved the world many times. You heard the same story twice over the course of this trial about the sad death of Sam Folger. You heard a version of Sam's older brother Harry, and you heard another from Cap. They don't contradict each other, not really. Caps just provides some details that Harry's didn't. Plaintiff's counsel represented evidence to support their versions, but all we have to go on is Cap's side of the story is Cap's words. Really, um, Cap asked me not to bring up his time as Captain America because the death of Sam Folger occurred before he became Captain America, and but the truth was he was always Cap. He stands up for what's right. That that is what he does now, and that is what he did in 1940. Cap is helping a friend save his brother from evil. When it looked like all hope was lost, he stood up and spat in an evil's face, even though he knew it would most likely result in his own death. His mistake was underestimating the scope of the evil he was up against, and so Folger died, but that death had nothing to do with Steve Rogers. Sam Folger was killed by Nazis. That would have happened whether Cap was there or not. Sam would have gone after his brother, come hell or high water. Both stories agree on that. And let's think about what happened next. Again, everyone agrees Cap attempted to fight for his country, and we um, We went through great personal risk to do it. Now um when he went to enlist, he had just witnessed an act of great evil. Think about the the man you saw speak here today. Does that kind of man flee evil, or does he fight it? Ultimately, there are two versions of the story, and it's up to you to believe which one. It's up to you to decide which one you believe. I know which one I do. Thank you. And then they kind of do this like walking away thing where Matt, She-Hulk, and Cap are walking away while the court is talking about the verdict and how it's like, oh, Mr. Foreman, have you reached the verdict? He's like, now that it's over, Steve, can you tell us what this was about? He's like, happy to, though. Thank you both. I needed you to, you in a big way, and you came through. I won't forget it. He's like, you think? Or it's like there was more going on on than just the case. And like, you think? He's like, you need me, you need me, you needed me to do my damnedest to get a verdict against you in a wrongful death case. I still don't get it. So, there's more to this case. I just think someone wanted to tarnish my legacy. They knew I'm getting close to the end. They ginned up this whole lawsuit situation to do that. You mean like a bad guy? Why didn't you just tell us that? We could have grabbed him for you. He's like, once he went public with the lawsuit, it was too late. Sending some friends of mine to beat him up wouldn't have done a thing. Would have made it worse. People would have assumed I was guilty. I needed to win in court. So why did you choose us? And why did you make me the one trying to prove you were guilty? And then they're like, we find the defendant, and then they end up like pausing and not giving a verdict. Um, but we all assume it's not guilty. Um, and he's like, and Steve tells Matt that he's like, I needed you to go all the way, Matt, no holding back. I didn't want anyone to say that the lawyer on the other side took it easy. And let's face it, you've always been a little bit dark. If anyone could get their head around the idea that maybe I was guilty, maybe I was guilty, I figured it was you, and you picked Jen to represent you. He's like, well, sure, I didn't want to lose, because obviously Jen is a good lawyer, maybe even a better lawyer. That is up for you guys to decide between Matt Murdock or Jennifer Walters. He's like, wait, so who is the bad guy? He's like, I'll show you the police. You remember the police report Matt found? That should never have been in the records. The government buried this whole thing deep. The fact that that poor Harry decided to talk on his deathbed, that was strange too. He would have known all that Nazi business would come out. There were plenty of other incriminating documents in the world. Basically fell into Matt's lap, and half of them were fake. Who's an old enemy of mine, specializes in that sort of thing. It was Dr. Faustus. The Austrian criminal mastermind specializes in psychological manipulation and so on. Had access to the Nazi rolls from the 40s. Must have tracked Harry down and forced him to make that statement. He's like, oh sure, Dr. Faustus, of course. He's like, you will die soon enough, Captain Rogers, but you will live long enough to see that I've tarnished your legacy forever. I'll make sure of that. You want us to help you beat him up, and they do. They end up. This is all the action you get from this comic, and it's like they pretty much just come in, beat the crap out of his grunts. He's like, you think you've won? It's just my opening salvo, Captain. You can't fight me. After all, you'll you will soon be dead. And Captain America, being Captain America, he still has a super soldier serum in him. Just walks up to him, beats the crap out of him. One hit probably. It's like, yeah, well, not yet. And Jen, Angie, and Patsy end up walking back to New York, or they're in New York and they're walking back to their apartment. And there's like no more trips out of New York for a while, eh, ladies? And like, I'm sure we'll have quite a backlog of caseworks here. It's like, I want to use the stealth suit again. Find me something stealthy. It's like, nope, too exciting. Whatever we do next, let's make sure um it's good and boring. And she gets cut off because she realizes that her door has kind of been messed up. And it's good old Titania, her nemesis, sitting on her desk. It's like, hey there, Jen. How about this blue file? And it ends with that. The next comic starts up and it's her with Titania. But that's pretty much it for um the She-Hulk comics that I've brought to you guys today. I've gone a little bit over with this one, and I do wanna send the links out. Um, uh, that I didn't get to do it earlier. but I figured I'd send it out now. Here's a link to the Marvel Buddies podcast. This is just for you guys in case you wanted to watch older. Boop, boop. But there's that. Those are the links to the YouTube channel and to the Google Forums. And that was She-Hulk. She has a lot, again, a lot of other stories, and she's really great. There was one where she takes on it's like it's like really strong dude, and you end up finding out that like she ends up losing to this guy, but she comes back and ends up like fighting him again, and you realize that her power is doesn't come from her rage, but it comes from Jennifer's strength directly. Like the stronger Jennifer is, like stronger She-Hulk is. So if Jennifer is like a normal person, like doesn't hit the gym, doesn't work out, She-Hulk won't be as strong, right? But when Jennifer does hit the gym and she is working out, she's active, She-Hulk is also active. If that makes any sense. It's kind of like a multiplier, right? So, you know, 2 times 1,000 is 2,000, but 20 times 1,000 is 20,000, right? So Hulk is significantly stronger when Jennifer or She-Hulk is significantly stronger when Jennifer is stronger. She-Hulk Attorney at Large comes out on the 18th, which is I'm sure she I'm sure she has, but um I, I I doubt they'd be any good if they wrote her any stories where she's lost. I mean, maybe. Let's see. Has she Hulk lost any? Um, that I know of, probably not. Um, it's the one we just talked about. I guess not. Um, she's a pretty good lawyer, so I guess not. She's also like prior to this, she was a high profile lawyer. Like she did like a lot of other court cases, including defending Doctor Doom's son and like you mentioned, and getting Spider-Man like slander off the Daily Bugle. Um, or like stopping slander from the Daily Bugle of Spider-Man. Um, she's done a lot. So like obviously, and she's been a big high profile lawyer. So I'm assuming that with her high profile, she's had to have like won those cases. But yeah, again, She-Hulk Attorney at Large comes out on the 18th, which is next week Thursday. Um, if I'm not mistaken, or it's right, or is it the 21st, which is 2 Sundays? She-Hulk Attorney at Law. When does this come out? August 18th. Yep. August 18th. So that's next week Thursday, same day that the Dragon Ball movie drops. I think here in U.S. I mean, yeah, at least that's the day I'm going. But that's pretty much it for She-Hulk. She's a really interesting character, and she was a fun read because it's not always the Hulk smash kind of bop 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 kind of stuff. She is a Hulk, but she's like she really smart. Um, I'm really excited to see the She-Hulk show. obviously, She-Hulk's a great character, but I'm really excited to see Daredevil back in it. Charlie Cox is coming back, of course, playing reprising his role as Daredevil, and you see him in that yellow and red suit from the 60s. I mean, I'm excited to see She-Hulk. The one thing that I'm concerned about is Jamila Jamil as Titania. The outfit looks so goofy. She's just like she looks really goofy as Titania. Like this is goofy. Like I mean like don't like this looks goofy. Like this looks goofy. But like don't get me wrong. I mean she's also like extremely over sexualized and she's in spikes. But I don't know. This just looks really goofy. Um, I don't. They kind of sonicked it up a little bit because they definitely like bullied the crap out of her. Um, and the CGI with it. But I'm also not upset that they casted Jamila Jamil. I think she'll be fine. She was on a couple other shows. Um, she definitely looks like she'd fit the role. Um, she just kind of looks goofy. I mean, like I this looks like a wig, and it's like really again goofy. But also there's like the frog guy. Who's showing up this dude. So so I mean it looks kind of like looks kind of goofy. I should also mention I didn't get to mention this during the podcast, but prior to Deadpool breaking the fourth wall, the main person that did break the fourth wall was She-Hulk. She-Hulk was known for her like, she'd be talking to said person and then she'd look over to the camera and be like, "Yeah, blah 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 blah." And then she'd go back to her conversation and kind of break that fourth wall. And we see hints of that during the She-Hulk trailer. So I'm excited for that. Especially because that also makes it so that she predates Deadpool both in the comics and in the movies as the main fourth wall breaker. I guess if they don't consider the first two Deadpool movies MCU canon. Um, yeah, I'm really excited to see She-Hulk. It looks good, looks interesting. And I can't wait for it. And then also, I Am Groot does drop in 2 days. Look out, cause I might do a Groot episode sometime soon. But that's been She-Hulk. I'm more than positive that you will more likely see Hellcat before you see Jamie. Hellcat is she's already been in the Daredevil or at least in the Defenders and in um Jessica Jones, and I know that a couple of those characters have been seen on the sets of other shows. I don't think you'll get Hellcat as soon as She-Hulk. It'd be really interesting. It'd be great if they did, but you'll probably see Kristen. I know Kristen Ritter and Mike Coulter have been spotted on the Echo set, who are the guys that played Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Um, and Patsy's good friends with her, so if they do bring back Jessica, they might bring back Patsy. Um, I don't know yet. I don't know yet though. Um, I hope so. But it is interesting. And She-Hulk is a great character. She has a lot of great stories. If you guys have any recommendations, you guys can feel free to email me at marvelousmarvelbuddies@gmail.com, and I'll give you my comic recommendations if you guys want. But that's been She-Hulk. That's pretty much her. Um, yeah, that's all I have for her. I guess that's it for this week, and I'll see you guys next Monday for another character. Peace.